Hi, and welcome back for your daily dose of LOL Esports content. We're going to cover the LEC Winter Week 1 Day 2, and then preview tomorrow's schedule in Europe as well. Predictions, I went 2 and 3 on the day. I'm 5 and 5 so far this season. Definitely a couple puzzling decisions by teams that caused me to lose some predictions, but nevertheless, we're here. So, first things first, Giant X and BDS. BDS would win. Early game, Giant X actually had a lead. It was not large, but they were more active over the aggregate of the laning phase. The laning phase would actually go 18 minutes. We've had the majority of our laning phases go well beyond the 15-minute mark, but BDS started strong. They invaded. They went and got grubs, took a Drake, and went bot side. So the first 4 plays, BDS actually had the advantage. Sheo making things happen. Now, Peach did do some good things in this one. I do think people need to give him a bit more credit than what he's getting. He did steal a couple objectives in Sheo's face. Sheo on a Graves in this one. Giant X would get a couple kills in the 2v2, which turned the game around. Patrick getting both of them, and that was a big difference. I thought Patrick looked excellent today on the Callista, and Ignar alongside him at support. Giant X would use this advantage to try and get Drake. A fight would ensue afterwards, 3-1. Patrick would get another double. BDS respond, winning a fight in mid 2-1. Giant X actually win a 3v4 later. BDS take a Rift Herald. Giant X take Drake in response, and laning phase ends at 18 minutes, with Giant X actually ahead 400 gold. The CS diffs all relatively close, the biggest being actually Peach up 7. But in the mid to late game, things just got out of whack because, frankly, they gave BDS Garen. And Otoamne picked Kesante, and they went Garen. And it's just not great. Not great at all. We know BDS, like, you can't leave Garen up. You certainly cannot let Adam get counterpick like that either and have Garen up, or Darius, or Set, or one of these champions that he is just very good at. And even he said after the game, they were interviewing him, and I made him MVP for this one. I mean, hell, it's right there. That he's like, Garen probably isn't as strong as it was. He has to play it a bit differently than he did before because of the itemization and things like that. But at the same time, he's like, there are spots for it. And there were spots in this one. And Giant X had a chance. I thought Ice did not play well at all. He led the team in damage, 5-4-3, 30%. It makes me curious how much damage he could have dealt if he hit like half of his Varus alties. I mean, he looked off. And it was rough. Adam shed some light on that after the game, saying that, there's some communication issues going on, which I mean, that is to be expected, really. Ice is just out of Korea for a year here. Nuke would go 008 on Oriana in mid lane. Jackie's 143, 29% damage on a Nico. Only could do so much. There were a couple plays where they went to bot lane, tried to make things happen, didn't really, that might have been another game. I think that's another game. Jackie's tried to make things happen, though, in this one in the mid to late game. I mean, you don't die 4 times by not trying to do something. But it's like, it's too bad because, honestly, I think Ignar's put together 2 good games. Patrick has as well. That bot duo is formidable. But just leaving Garen up was such a mistake. And, BDS... Go Graves jungle, that didn't make much of a difference. I mean, a lot of people blaming Peach in the Discord. I don't blame Peach for this one. I mean, how much can he really do in the end? I think he was on Lee Sin, so that's that. Mad Lions, Koi, and SK. SK would win this one. An early game that was pretty close in terms of what occurred. In the end, SK did build a gold lead, though, significantly in the bot lane. So, Mad Lions would try... SK would try a bot dive, and Mad Lions would actually outplay it. They would survive it. But SK immediately would go down there again because they had blown sums, and I talked about this, I had this in the Discord a couple days ago. The question of how valuable is blowing a summoner. And, well, not just that, but what is valuable when it comes to getting a gank or a dive off. And a lot of people thought summoners were worth the gank or dive. And really, it's about, can you go back down there and punish for that? Is your 2v2 going to punish for that? Or better yet, in a solo lane, is something going to happen from that? And in this one, SK punished Mad Lions. They would dive 2-1. That would lead to a Drake. Mad Lions say, well, fine, I guess we have to take grubs. SK would punish that 1-for-1. SK then take grubs themselves 2-1, so Mad end up taking one of them. So grubs is not heavily favoring anybody in the very early game. Mad Lions would take a Drake after a fight that went 2-2. Suppa with both on Lucian. However, SK would win a fight 2-0 for Rift Herald and end laning phase at 17 minutes with a 2.5k gold lead because Exakick and DOS were ahead 29 CS by this point. They gapped the bot lane. Now, to be fair, Isma spent a lot of time down there. Like we said, he dove down there twice. He made sure that Suppa and Alvaro were in a hole. The top lane, Myron, I thought did very well on the Poppy, but in the mid to late game, not as relevant as irrelevant. And it's kind of like, that's a pun, but honestly, it's true. Irrelevant, I thought, played very well in making things, just help spacing with Renekton. And honestly, even like baiting out some cooldowns from Mad Lion's Koi. X-Kick would go 11-1-6, 34% of damage on Kalista. He was disgusting today. I said it yesterday. I want X-Kick to do really well in his sophomore season. I think he has one of the brightest futures in the LEC. DOS 1-0-18 alongside him on Renata, so 12, 1, and 24 in the bot lane. Suppa 4-5-2, 33% of damage on Lucian. X-Kick was my MVP. I mean, he controlled late game team fights. To be fair to Suppa, I thought that he was a little more active in this one. And he had to be. At the same time, though, there were some positioning issues that punished him. In a topside fight, that fight about Rift Herald, 2-0, I think, is part of that. So, that one, SK win. So, G2KC. G2 would take it, 2-0. More active in the early game, 8-5 in terms of making things happen and plays and things like that. A lot of trades in this one, but at the same time, just like the first game for Carmine Corp, they have a gold lead when laning phase ended at 15 minutes. They just couldn't take that to the mid to late game. Now, immediately in draft, you see Bo on Vi, and you say, well, this is going to be a doozy. And it was. It was. So, G2 go topside, make something happen. Carmine Corp say, fine, we're going to go bot, but it's a trade 1-for-1. Then Yike would really get going, and he ends up being the MVP on the Viego. So he would go top bot. So he's hitting both sides of the rift here, and then he's like, oh, okay, after I go bot, I'm going to go take grubs. And Bo is on the back foot, or KC are on the back foot, and they say to themselves, well, we got to go bot lane. We got to offset this, right? So they're offsetting things. They're playing behind what Yike is doing. They're playing reactionary. Carmine Corp go Drake because they took bot, went bot. G2 would punish, though. So they go bot side, and the next time they go bot side, they win the fight 4-2. A skirmish starts, and then KC starts sending everybody down there, and Yike on the Viego pulls off a triple kill and controls that fight. And then, I mean, he had some int moments in the mid to late game, don't get me wrong. So making him MVP has a lot to just do with how he kept them in the game, in the early game, and was relatively dominant, to say, for the most part, in the foundational parts of this game. G2 would go grubs. KC would actually win a fight 3-0. Seiken with a double. That was a moment where I was like, oh, maybe KC are crawling back into this, and they did. That's why they had a gold lead. So G2 take Rift Herald, KC take another Drake, and laning phase ends with KC up 400 gold, and you say that's nothing. And the point is, though, G2 are a lot more active, but had not a lot to show for it. And it caused a messy mid to late game that were like, I mean, exposed nexuses, let's take Barons, let's fight around Drakes. KC had such control over the Drakes that G2 had to respect Infernal Soul. And actually, you could argue, change their plans a bit. There are a few times today, or at least in the first 10 games, where the trade, the typical trade we've seen in the past, where it's, hey, you're going to make something happen, or you're going to take top side objectives, Rift Heralds and now Grubs and Rift Heralds, and bot side's team, whoever's in Prio and the bot side of the Rift, is going to take Drakes, and then the third Drake fight is the one that kind of decides things, whether the Drake team's going to stack or not. Now, because of this, G2 had to respond, and it caused for just some messiness, to be honest with you. A lot of fighting. And in the end, I mean, Kennen, Broken Blade on Kennen goes 2-1-3, 25% of damage as he's taking the Nexus because he's backdooring on the Kennen. And he had kind of split pushed and was doing that for the whole entire mid to late game. Cabo really had no answer. Seiken on the Nico didn't have much going for himself either. Cabo was on Malphite, I think, which, I mean, given what Cabo, at least to me, what I think of when I think of Cabo Shard, that's kind of it, right? Weak side top laner on a tank. Which makes sense if you put Bo on something that could carry. Graves was up, Talia was up. And instead, he's on Vi. I don't know where the damage is coming from on Carmine Corp, and in the end, it was Lucian. So yikes, 7-2-4 on Viego, upset 5-3-6, 39% of damage on Lucian. And he led this game in damage on both sides. He was a menace. But G2 took him out, and also G2 split pushed. And by split pushing, we're kind of just staying away from the damage of upset. What is Cabo going to do into Kennen? Now, you could say, on Malphite, he shouldn't die, and frankly, he really wasn't. But at the same time, I mean, BB's just going to kind of push that lane at will. So, G2 win. KC have another good early game, at least a competitive early game, and throw it away. Seiken also had some really interesting ultis in this one again, where it's just like, did you misclick? Which could happen. He's a rookie. Oh, no, sorry, he is not a rookie. He's not a rookie. Fnatic Vitality. Fnatic go to 2-0. So another close, active early game, but Fnatic have quite a lead. So 2.5K by the time the laning phase ends. Humanoid was dominant on the Azir. Now, this game could have been a lot more lopsided than it was, because Fnatic were extremely active, whereas Vitality and Douglas not doing what he needed to do, not executing as you could say, because the Vitality outplayed a couple bot dives by Fnatic. Fnatic dive bot and lose 2-0 off the rip. Fnatic would then go bot again, and off of that, Razork goes in the jungle, solo dies to Douglas right after. Fnatic then go top, Fnatic go get grubs off of that. Vitality are like, well, if you're clearly in topside doing all this, we'll just take Drake. Fnatic would then get a kill in the mid 2v2, mid jungle 2v2 in the river. Vitality attempt another dive into bot lane, in which case, Fnatic try another bot dive, in which case Vitality say no. So if these two, dives were more efficient, I guess, because we can go back to how I said earlier, the blowing sums shit and all that. But if you're really executing on it for the amount of time it's taking to do these dives, this could have been a lot dirtier for Vitality. Like, Fnatic would have blown them out. To end laning phase, Fnatic would go top, take some more grubs. Vitality say, fine, we'll take Drake again. So the entire time, Fnatic's just dictating things to Vitality. And that happened in this last game as well, where just one team kind of is just going through the motions. Laning phase actually ended at under 13 minutes. Fnatic up 2.6k gold. So that is big too, because we're looking at SK ahead 2.5 at 17 minutes. Well, 12, almost 13 minutes is the same gold lead for Fnatic. Oscarinen up 19 CS over Photon. I think that was Kesante into Jax. And then Fnatic were ahead 20 CS in the bot duo. So both sides of the rift ahead by a lot. And Vitality just not having much going for themselves. We'll talk about it in a second. So Humanoid 602, 41% of damage on Azir. Oscarin 104 on the K'Sante, like I said. Vethio 200, 34% of damage on Xerath. Humanoid was MVP, poking and prodding, finding space, doing well with his shuffles in team fights. In the mid to late game, as Fnatic just took their lead and ran with it. Like I said, another team where we have a case where a team took a couple Drakes and they have to. You are not dictating the game anymore. The other team has said you can take the Drake, and that's what Vitality ended up having to do. Now, Vethio on Xerath, I thought that there were some interesting moments for him. At the same time, it is a Xerath. And last year we saw Xerath come back into the meta slightly as a counter to Azir, but frankly, it wasn't much of a counter at all. We looked at it, and Azir won that matchup 8-3 last year. So, a weird one to say the least. To go that route, just Vitality look lost. They look better than yesterday, but they still look lost. Douglas needed to execute on one of these dives. I keep saying that. Razork's the one diving. He needs to punish. If he sees Razork diving bot lane, he needs to offset that somehow. At the end of laning phase, he's ahead 7 CS. That is jack shit. Something has to be made. You have to do something. If the enemy jungler is showing and they're doing something, either you counter it or you do nothing. You don't do nothing. You find something. Whether it's even vision getting around an objective, take a couple camps, get ahead 15-20 CS by 15 minutes or something. So that's the thing. Rogue and Heretics. Heretics win. This was a boring fucking game. So Heretics outplay Rogue 5-1 in the early game. Jankos is MVP because he just built this lead and Rogue had nothing. Rogue just a slow death. So Jankos would start this off by stealing some chickens from Marcoon, and you may say to yourself, really, we're talking about stealing chickens. Well, not a lot happened in this laning phase. I think only one kill actually happened before laning phase ended at 15 minutes. So Heretics would take a couple grubs. Rogue are like, oh, please give us a grub, so they get a grub. Heretics would then dive bot lane, which didn't get a kill, but were able to get them Drakes. And they got a Drake, and Marcoon said, okay, well, I'm going to offset this. I'm going to go take grubs. Well, unfortunately, without the prio or anything to go with that, Heretics are able to get there, kill Marcoon, and take 2 of the 3 grubs. So Marcoon finally tries to do something, and it doesn't work. Now, the next time we had something happen was Rift Herald. So Rogue take that, and that would end laning phase. That just kind of goes to show you how sparse the action was in this one. It was just nothing happening. Humanoid was on Azir, and Larson was. For some reason, sorry, I got confused for a second. So, Heretics up 1.3k gold at 15 minutes. Sazgenda had quite a gold lead over Wonder in top lane, 14 CS, but Jankos was up 14 in the jungle over Marcoon. Marcoon on the Maokai did nothing. Absolutely nothing. Wasn't using his ulti. I don't know what the point of drafting Maokai is without the ulti. I've been saying it for over a year now, year and a half, ever since Worlds 2022, that, hey, this ulti is super cracked. Like, you need to use it well, and he didn't use it at all as the team just fell apart. And Larson was at 15 CS over Perks, I think Azir Akali. Range versus melee. So Perks led the team in damage, 302, 25%, despite not really being in all that many fights. Kaiser 0015, so hell, Kaiser finds a way to get 15 assists on Bard. And Perks had led the team in damage with only 5 kills participated in, which kind of goes to show you the way this game went. Larson 0-1-2, 42% of damage. He out DPM'd everybody in this game by quite a bit. He had over 800 DPM. Sisgenda had a ton of DPM, but Heretics kind of just like ate all that damage and kept on going. Because Rogue were just poking at them, and Heretics were just like, okay, well, we're going to go at you, and you're going to keep backing up until your Nexus is gone. It was very reminiscent of like an LCK snooze fest. Just an ugly game. Heretics get the win. Sneak peek for tomorrow. Vitality and BDS. Last time they played, Adam, Sheo, Photon, Douglas, BDS would win. 8, 10, 20, 36% of damage for them. Photon, Douglas, 7, 11, 25, 40% of damage in the loss. G2 and Rogue, G2 9th in the power rankings. Last time these two organizations played against each other was Summer Finals of 2022, where Rogue would win 3-0. Larson would go 6-3, 30, 27% of damage in the win. Caps 2-8-8, 21% of damage in the loss. Heretics and Giant X, they've never played against each other. However, last year, Yankos and Flackid would go, Peach and Patrick would go 6-2, 22, 47% of damage in the win against Heretics as Excel players. Yankos Flackid 7-6-5, 44% of damage in the loss. We'll see how boring that game is tomorrow. A pretty hype game, I would say. So in the Discord, KC Mad. This is kind of a hype game, right? You have two, I would essentially say now, ERL orgs coming into the LEC. I know Mad Lions have been around, but given their roster, they might as well be an ERL team. Not to say that the players are ERL level, even though I think you can make an argument for some of that. But, I mean, the fan base and everything else has kind of come from Movistar Riders up to Mad Lions all of a sudden with all these players. It's going to have that rivalry vibe of Spain versus France. And I would have made that the game of the week because I think that's actually a rivalry game, but they probably don't want to hype that up. They made it G2KC today, which is just like fan service. I thought that was a joke. If anything, this should have been the game of the week just on a competitive standpoint going into it, as in going into the week outright, going into the season. Otherwise, you go this one based on how things have went so far. So, regardless, Mad Lions KC, last time they played, Bo was on Vitality. He went 1-6-2, 24% damage in the loss. Elyoya 2-2-7, 12% damage in the win on Mad. Of course, those rosters are completely different now. SK Fnatic, both 2-0. Last time they played, Fnatic would win 2-0 in season finals. Or no, it might have been in summer playoffs. I forget which. Oscarin and Noah, 25-20, 53% of their team's damage. Irrelevant and Exakick, 7-16-15, 44% damage in the loss. So that one's obviously hyped, both 2-0. One of those teams will be undefeated, and the other one will not, going into week 2. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, like it. Subscribe to the channel for daily League of Legends content. Follow me on Twitter, join the Discord, become a YouTube supporter, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.